joining us in our magnificent new science complex. As some of you may know, we officially dedicated this building just 1 week ago. It's both serendipitous and highly appropriate that we have completed the state-of-the-art 21st century science building in the same year that we celebrate the 225th anniversary of the passage of the charter, that's by the state legislature here in Pennsylvania, establishing Dickinson College. In many ways, this building symbolizes the culmination of the dreams and vision of our founding Dr. Benjamin Rush. Before I talk a little bit more, and not too much, about the building and how it reflects Dickinson's current dynamic situation, let me clarify any misconceptions that might still linger about our college's founding date. Now, this is a little complex. The college had an original founding date from 1783, the date of the charter, until 1940. That was the date of 1783. That was the founding date. No thought of 1773. The chairman of the board in 1940 was at a Penn football game, and he had heard that Penn had found a little grammar school that Benjamin Franklin found on the grounds of Penn. Penn then changed its date back. And of course, the vicious competition is who is first in line for the academic procession. And the older your founding date, the further up you are in the line. So this chairman of the board said, aha, Dickinson used the building of a grammar school in Carlisle for the first classes of Dickinson College. That was founded in 1773. Voila! We are now 1773. In 1940, every single image, it was on buildings, chipped into stone, every single image, every single trace of 1783 was erased from this college, except one spot on campus today that says Dickinson College founded 1783. Anybody know where that is? It's on Old West, because you can't touch a national landmark building. You can't alter it. And so if you look up, some of you are graduating, just look up and you'll see founded 1783. But as of 1940, we established the founding date, official founding date of 1773, and now we say we have a founding date of 1773 and a chartering date as a college in 1783. A little fishy, but it still works. Now, the charter is a remarkable document. Dr. Rush's guiding hand is evident in the explicit charge that was given to this new college, quote, to disseminate and promote the growth of useful knowledge. Equally evident is the fact that this institution was being created out of revolution, and that it was intended to provide a distinctly American form of education to serve the emerging nation. Also very interesting, when we have the founding date of 1773, that places us as a colonial college. And Dr. Rush would never have wanted that. He thought the colonial colleges, King's College, Columbia, Harvard, Yale, he thought they were all just monkish institutions inherited from Europe. This one was supposed to have the energy. This one was supposed to get the kick for the new nation. So 1783 serves us well when we mention it. And this is what he said. This is in the charter. Whereas the happiness and prosperity of every community depends much on the right education of youth, who must succeed the aged in the important offices of society. That's pretty brutal on that position. The aged and the most exalted nations have acquired their preeminence by the virtuous principle and liberal knowledge instilled into the minds of the rising generation. So there we had our objective right there. Few institutions have been given such a lofty charge and such enormous responsibility. Dr. Rush was well ahead of his time in so many ways. He instinctively knew that the new nation would only succeed if it could draw on a citizenry who had been educated to use their knowledge to advance the government and the economy, and much of that, of course, through science. Rush advocated for a rigorous curriculum that included traditional subjects, but that also included modern languages and science, particularly chemistry. He knew that Americans' inherent pragmatism and self-sufficiency would cause them to push the boundaries of existing knowledge with a passion for innovation that has indeed become a hallmark of our national culture. Today, 225 years after our college was chartered, we continue to strive to fulfill this extraordinary vision and to adapt to the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. This building symbolizes our continuing commitment to Dr. Rush's progressive and pragmatic outlook. We were not content to construct here a traditional facility. On the contrary, we spent nearly a decade discussing, exploring, and even arguing about what kind of facility would give our students and our faculty the cutting edge they needed to become the scientific leaders of the future, including policy leaders. The result is a building that is extraordinarily innovative in its design. It is constructed specifically to encourage the interdisciplinary interaction, the flexibility of interaction that will prompt our students and faculty to seek creative connections among the sciences that will generate new knowledge and push the frontiers of knowledge well into the 21st century. Science is done in collaboration. Science is done in dialogue between and among the fields, and that is where we are ending up with this building. That is the future for our students. Dr. Rush's influence on Dickinson College does, of course, extend far beyond the Rector Science complex. And by the way, there are some great models for our students here. You see several names associated here in these alcoves that are associated with the college. But Stewart Hall is one example. Mr. Stewart, Bill Stewart, was a graduate of Dickinson. He went on to be one of the founding executives of Pfizer Pharmaceutical in Brooklyn in those days. And he was the person at Pfizer who pushed for the production of penicillin during World War II. And he saved millions of lives by that decision and that energy and that vision. That person was a Dickinsonian. Provost Neil Weissman will explain to you how Dr. Rush's guidance continues to be pervasive Dickinson characteristics throughout our curriculum. Neil?
I would say at the outset that so that you don't think that our Board of Trustees of 1940 were entirely a pack of weasels, that the principal or director of the grammar school that was founded in 1773 became the first professor at Dickinson College. His name was Ross. He was a distinguished classicist. He quit the college over a dispute about salary, which is current faculty note that with interest. But at any rate, there is some continuity between the two, but Bill is entirely right. 1783 really is our founding date because it really reflects the intention of Benjamin Rush. And I think it's really very timely in a way that I'll get to in a minute. Over the summer, I was asked to, by the Dean of Students, asked to write something for the incoming students. And I knew it was the 220th anniversary, so I thought I would sit down and try to figure out sort of a then and now deal, right? And then what Benjamin Rush intended for the college. He was very clear about this. He wrote an extended plan of education for Dickinson, and it's an interesting read. If you ever want to know a little bit about the founding intention, you can go to our website and find it. And so I measured that up, tried to measure that up against the current curriculum. And there were obviously a lot of changes. For one thing, when Rush started the college, his intention, even though he did believe in educating women, he was very progressive about that. The college was all male in terms of the student body. And now, of course, the majority of our students are women. In fact, the majority of our science majors are women, which is unusual for liberal arts colleges, but a good fact. So that was an obvious change. Benjamin Rush set up a curriculum where everything that you did was set by the college. There was no choice in selecting courses. I guess the idea of an elective had not yet been invented. So that was an obvious difference too. And I could elaborate a few more, but there's some clear cases in which 1783 and 2008 are a little bit different. But I really think overall we've been remarkably honest to Rush's vision. And that is the vision that Bill just articulated and reported on, this notion of liberal arts connected with what's going on in the world more broadly and training students through the liberal arts. An education that most people tend to think is impractical, but we know is the most practical of them all, training students to go out into the world and deal with difficult situations. It's worth remembering when Rush founded this college in 1783, the American Revolution had just ended, and what was going to happen in this new nation was very unclear. The Constitution had not been written, the economy was in a state of rapid transition. How that would work out, having broken away from England, was a real question mark. What the frontier meant for the country was an open proposition. It was a time of revolution in the sciences. If you go down and look at the priestly equipment that we have in the lower level of the library, you get a feel for how people were just beginning to discover the world. It was a time of turmoil. And here we are, 225 years later, in another time of very considerable change. The country is going to be going through rapid change on many fronts. And I should say parenthetically, that's not a political statement. We'll find out about that on Tuesday. But more broadly, if you look at the economy, if you look at global international relations, if you look at the sciences, as this building reflects, everything is changing. Even in the sciences, the old notion that there's a separate field of biology and a separate field of chemistry and a separate field of psychology is really pretty much out the window. Our two most rapidly growing science majors are biochemistry, which brings two together, and neuroscience, which brings all three of the departments that I mentioned together. So it really is a time of terrific change, and I have real confidence that Benjamin Rush will be pleased that our curriculum really does speak to that. We continue to emphasize giving our students useful skills in the broad sense, meaning the kind of skills where if, okay, the economy's changing, and I was planning on being an investment banker, and I've decided I don't want to be that right now, I can readjust, and I can reconfigure, and be ready to take on a different career. The kind of education that has global perspective. Our students, I think, have a more clear sense of the relationship between what goes on in this country and the rest of the world than really any other students I know. Or even our new initiative in environmental sustainability, which very clearly is going to be absolutely essential for students to understand and begin to appreciate. It's an area where our most fundamental values need to be reassessed, whether or not we can continue as a society and as a global community operating the way we have in the past. It's really an open question, and what the skills would be to move forward in that field are really very unclear. So, we have a leading position nationally in that area, not only in operating in a green way, but also in educating students. So, I think whenever I talk about the curriculum in conjunction with Benjamin Rush, you always say to yourself, well, is the old boy turning over in his grave? Or is Professor Ross, who, by the way, he's buried in Carlisle, unlike Rush, who's in Philadelphia, is he turning over in his grave thinking about my remarks about the current curriculum? And I really have every confidence that they're not. That, in point of fact, we really are operating in the spirit of a remarkable founder who knew that the college and liberal arts were vital, and also knew that they needed to be dynamic and change with the times. So I really have great pride in what we're doing, and even now in times of financial stress, I have a lot of confidence that we have identified really, really clearly what our students are going to need no matter what happens. And as I look out on parents, I feel really good in telling you that I think that your sons and daughters are getting the kind of education that is going to make for meaningful and effective lives. This building is a symbol of it. And in closing, I should point out that if you'd like a little more formal tour, well, it's informal, but organized tour of the building, that as soon as I'm finished, go over to the Stafford Auditorium, which is the door right over there. Ken Schultes will direct you in, and they'll do a little walkthrough of the building. So thank you for all for coming, and enjoy the weekend.